What up, FIFA Tiers, and welcome to the FUT Tiers Extra Time podcast, where we have the Q&A and hot takes galore, hopefully. So, we have not got Brad here for today's episode. He was away. So, it's just me and Luke. How are you doing today, Luke?
I'm doing good, you know. Things are going alright. It's a shame Brad's not here, but you know, hopefully you can make up with that with some enthusiasm, with some stupid opinions, hopefully mainly coming from you, because I'm not going to say anything too stupid, at least not planning to.
Oh, are you sure? I mean, we have to find out.
I can try for you.
But we have got some interesting questions. I think the first question isn't really going to supply any hot takes, let's be fair. It is supplied by Brad himself, and he will be adding some input into this towards the end, but we're going to just talk about ours at the moment. So the question from B-Rad himself is, he is asking, what is our FIFA starting 11, so our best, cards that we've enjoyed essentially, starting 11 of cards from FIFA 17 onwards, but we've actually expanded this because Luke has got some from some earlier editions. But for me, personally, I did play FUT from the beginning. I am a FUT founder. But for me, I didn't really truly play it until 17 onwards, I feel. So, where shall we start? Shall we start at the front or shall we start at the back?
I think start at the back, but I mainly started off FIFA 12 as my first FIFA, but I got good around FIFA 15.
Okay. Alright, so our goalkeeper then. Who's been your most favourite goalkeeper across the FIFA generations?
So there's a lot of keepers that I've liked down the years. Heck, I used silver goalkeepers before they were cool. I'm tempted to shout out someone. I've got a list here. This is one question I'm prepped for today. I don't know any of the other Q&A questions. I've wrote down Butland for FIFA 17, but I might change that. I don't know what FIFA it was. But the silver I'm referring to is a guy called Carnezes. He used to play for Udinese. He went to Watford, which is the card I'm actually referring to here. He had a gold, I'm going to say 78 for Watford. But it was just, I just used that card and loved it. It's almost nostalgia to me because I used to build really stupid teams. Like we're talking, I would make a full Greek team, or I'd make I do make a full Colombian team every year. And no, David Ospina's not making it into this list because he is not good. But yeah, for me, I'm gonna change my mind on Butland. I feel that's way too obvious, and you know everyone loved Butland and hated Butland for that reason. I actually really like Carnezes.
I have got Butland written down on mine. FIFA 17 gold ordinary version of Butland. I think he was probably the first one that really set the precedent for the OP gold card goalkeeper that was mentioned every single year. So last year in particular, it was Nick Pope was the one that was spoken about a lot as being an OP goalkeeper. But Butland, I feel, is the one that started the trend for me. But yeah, that is my goalkeeper. I don't really have any honourable mentions other than maybe I like using David De Gea each year, and I did quite like his team of the year card in FIFA 19.
Okay,
that'd probably be an honourable mention.
I've never really got. I found out, by the way, it was an 82 rated card for Carnezes as well. Same year, so 2 FIFA 17 82 rated goalkeepers mentioned here, by the way. Fun fact for you.
Okay. I feel like obviously we've got the back four, but we'll go from right to left.
Right to left.
So let's start with the right back, or unless you've gone with a different formation.
No, I'm going for a 4-3-3 here for me. So at right back, I've gone for a very out there team of the season. People might remember this guy, but it's a guy called Dario Serna. His FIFA 16 team of the season. Now, I remember a lot of the right backs from FIFA 16 and any of the players from FIFA 16 really, because the chem glitch. This guy was so good. You could play him centre back, you could play him centre mid, you could play him right back. He was just such a well-rounded, balanced card. It was a Hullet gang team of the season right back in for Shakhtar and Croatian. So you're not fitting him in the team naturally. But it's just such a great card. It's just so well rounded. And when Hullet Gang actually meant something. FIFA 16, how many cards ended up being Hullet Gang? I'd be interested to know, honestly. But yeah, that card was crazy for me.
Now, for me, I've originally written down a FIFA 19 card and switched it out for a FIFA 19 card of a different, the same type of card, shall we say. So originally, it was Futmas Valencia. But then I realised, and I was like, no, I remember I used Futmas Arias. Because he got a weak link to a certain player that I have in my midfield, which we'll get onto a bit later on. But that Arias was incredible cheap. It wasn't that expensive to do. 89 pace, reasonable physical. Like nothing like spectacular, but at the time, you know, there was another card, and it was like a no-brainer sort of situation to have in the team.
Mm-hmm. It hurts me knowing you've put a Colombian in, and that I remember there was good versions of this guy. There's many a card that crossed my mind. Arias didn't come to mind. He even had a TOTS one year, but it didn't cross my mind. I think it was a PSV TOTS. The one that crossed my mind instead of maybe Cerna was Mbabu's like Young Boys Team of the Season cards that he got. Those came to mind for like old school right backs that were just crazy, but I don't think he had the chem glitch, so I didn't use him as much unless I wanted to force a Swiss team somehow.
First centre back. Now, I'm just going to say I'm kind of cheating because it's not a specific FIFA. There's multiple versions of this guy that I absolutely like, but he is the one person that when I see a special card of him on FIFA, especially if it's an SBC, I'm like, I'm 100% doing that. And that's what I did this year with like his FUT birthday. Sergio Ramos. He's like always a menace on FIFA in people's teams. Obviously, he's not quite got the pace nowadays on his standard cards, but when he does get a special card, whether it's been his team of years in the previous, for birthday, for his end of an era card, like last year, all very good cards. So this one's an all FIFA one rather than a specific version.
Mine's a specific version, but they're kind of almost like a story behind it. So it feels like it's any time I see this guy get a special, I'm like, I'm going for this guy. And that's Kostas Manolas. It's a really, really niche reference, but when I used to play FIFA 15, FIFA 16, the card looked like one of my mates. Like, it is spitting image of a friend of mine. So much so that down the line I got him a Napoli shirt with Manolas on the back. That sort of a long term of a reference. But Manolas's card, the one I picked out, was the Footies card he got in FIFA 18, 92 rated. I mean, who cares about shooting? He's just had insane physical, great defending, and 90 pace. So it's exactly what you want out of centre back, really.
Yeah, he is. The only thing I've never liked about him is just the lack of passing ability normally on his cards.
I was never
as I do.
I was nowhere near as fussy about playing out from the back. I played out from the back, but I was never fussy about the sort of passing on my defenders. I was always the pace. Like when I was thinking about that, right backs. I thought a lot about my right backs, and I went for Cerner in the end. But there was Danny DaCosta's team of the season. There was DeMarcos. Everyone remembers DeMarcos. He had an inform in FIFA 15 that I loved. Like, yeah, there's plenty of cards to sort of go around, and you're narrowing it down to one to enjoy the most. It's like, yeah, it's tough.
Other centre back then?
I went classic. We mentioned the goalkeeper of this duo. It's a strong link to the man Butland. It is Chris Smalling. FIFA 17, Chris Smalling was a different beast. I've got the footies version down here, but you could easily just put the normal version in and you know, you can hardly tell.
Yep. For me, I've gone FIFA 20. I've gone Flashback Militao.
Yeah,
What
premium
a
flashback.
card.
Yeah, because was there 2?
Premium, yeah.
That was
Not don't want the lower rated stuff, right? You got to go for the higher rated stuff.
I'm just making sure it's the right year.
When given 2 options, you got to go for the better. If you're given 2 options, you got to go for the more expensive and better looking card. Surely, I mean,
Depends
anyone
how much fodder you got at the time, really.
Fodder Central usually all the time for me. But yeah, that Flashback Militao, and kind of before we were doing recording, you kind of brought this up, the flashback to his time in Brazil and just giving a 20-year-old a flashback.
Yep, giving his Porto team of the season the year before. The year before, it's like, oh yeah, here's Eder Militao. He's got a Future Stars card. He's got like nearly 90 pace. Have fun. I remember that card fondly. And then he got a team of the season that was better, and then he got a flashback to that team of the season the next year. It's like, what's the point? Flashback. Oh, I'm just gonna flashback to last year when I was 19 or something.
12 months ago.
That might. We mentioned this off camera. Which is the more pointless flashback? Let us know, by the way. Which one of these is a more pointless flashback? Murata and his goddamn boots, or Eder Militao flashback to when he was 19 a year ago?
It's got to be the boots. It's got surely.
You'd think it would be the boots, but it's still outrageous giving a 20-year-old a flashback.
It is. It is outrageous. And left back wise, now I'm gonna say for mine, this is a person that's pretty much always had a team of the season card until he moved to the Premier League. When he was at Porto, always a staple in that team of the season every single year. And Telles, a perfect all-rounded card, you know. It has the perfect stats to play midfield, although I would play him at left back, but if I couldn't fit him in the team, I'd use him as a super sub to put him in midfield or something like that. But his cards over the years have been top tier, shall we say.
I get that. I'm going for another old-fashioned sort of, actually Porto as well. I'm going for another ex-Porto left back. And no, it's not Alexandro, who I believe was ex-Porto back in like FIFA 15. No, we're going for Miguel Layun's FIFA 16 Tots. That card was so good. Firstly, Chem Glitch still existed then, but I didn't even know about the Chem Glitch, and I was still playing him left wing. He was so adaptable. A 91 pace, 86 defending, 86 physical, I've got it up here, doesn't sound incredible by this day and age. In FIFA 16, that card was a monster. He just destroyed teams for me. I played him up front alongside record breaker Chicharito, and he tore people apart. It didn't matter where you put these cards. It just destroyed people, whether at left back and whipping in crosses, whether it's left wing and just destroying people. It's just so fun. It was just so fun. But if we're looking for a defensive card as well, one that's literally come to mind was Moments Kazawa a couple years back. Like, I didn't have that written down in notes. Just randomly when left back got mentioned, that crossed my mind as well.
Yeah.
Was a Moments Kazawa. Probably FIFA 20, FIFA 19. Can't remember.
Along those lines. So for me, I'm got mine in a 4-2-2 because I've basically essentially used that nearly every single year. So that's what I'm going for. So let's say one of your midfielders, and I'll say one of my defensive players. So I'll let you go first.
Okay, I'll go for the most defensive of my midfielders then. And it is a card that this guy was a meme for me for a few years. He's had 2 of this card. I'm talking about the better one in FIFA 19. Ultimate Scream Fellaini. Something about me with Fellaini. Whether I played him as striker or whether I played him actually as a midfielder, this card ended 99 pace, 99 defending. And it was a monster. It just destroyed the midfield at times. the other stats are behind the curve. Who cares? You've got a rapid, incredible, tall midfielder that will just it would just get in the way. It just breaks stuff up. It's exactly what the dream would have done for United if they got that. But yeah, I just loved using Fellaini down the years, and that was probably my favourite version.
And that card at the moment has got 99 pace and 99 dribbling.
Oh, it's dribbling. Oh, damn.
Yes.
It was one
I'm
point
pretty sure
he
it
had.
was dribbling when I looked at it earlier. But yeah, that was a card that I was considering. Because especially with those cards, the prices always fluctuated. Because when it was too bad stats, the price was like bare bottom. But as soon as it switched to like two really good stats, it's like boom, the price goes through the roof sort of situation. And it was good card to trade on, because you literally just hold on to loads when it was like cheap, and then wait for that change, which was a bit sporadic, shall we say, because I think it was meant to change like every 28 days or so, or 56, can't remember. But it only changed about 2 or 3 times actually throughout the year.
At least it wasn't as bad as when they were like, "Oh, it's a full moon tonight. Ooh, spooky!" Like, do you remember when they did that on like probably the first set?
Oh, for just 2 days or so.
2 days, and Halloween's here. Mertesack's got 80 pace now, and I'm like, I remember destroying someone with a team of all of the. I built a full Ultimate Scream team. It hadn't even been upgraded, and the guy was like, "Oh, I can't wait for you to have to use these crap versions." And I'm like, "Mate, they are the crap versions. They're not upgraded yet." But yeah, I have good memories of them.
First name on my whiteboard for midfield is going to be my second lowest rated player. So with Arias being 82, this one's 84 rated. And as I was saying about Soft Link, FIFA 19, Swaps, Lerma, which was, I'm pretty sure, also the first year that they introduced the swaps to the game. But back then it wasn't like icon swaps, because nowadays they do it as icon swaps, and this year they've done it as other things as well. But back then it was just like a selection of special cards that you collect the tokens towards, and I think Lerma was like one of the. I think he might have even been the cheapest one.
I love that card.
That card.
I'm not going to change him to put on my list, but that's another Colombian that like. I was trying to find space for Freddie Guarin, but yeah, Lerma slips my mind again. That 84 is him and Da Costa and the likes from FUT swaps. Even like Januzaj, I'm going to say, have one. Was it Januzaj? Was it Erdegaard? It was a Real Sociedad one. Like stuff like that were in there. I feel it was Januzaj.
Yeah, Januzaj had one. I don't know. Was that swaps? I think it was, but it was later in the game, wasn't it?
Manolas had one late in the year. I know that was also swaps for that one. But yeah, that Lerma was a staple of the Colombian team.
It was. He was a good card. Good card. So for me, my other defensive player is going to be one of the high-rated ones, and it is Player of the Year Kante. Back in FIFA 17, when we actually got the Player of the Year SBCs and stuff, those cards were like insane. They're essentially similar to the Team of the Seasons, but just an SBC and a purple-looking version of the card.
And him in a suit.
And yeah, holding a big ass trophy that looks just as tall as him.
Yep. Him and Leroy Sané, I think. If I remember rightly.
Young player of the year, something along those lines. I know Dele Alli one year got one. Around might have been a year later.
It might have been the same year, actually, realistically.
Could have been.
I think it could have been the same year. Because that was at Chelsea.
Yeah.
That card was at Chelsea. Maybe it was.
I know Van Dijk got
one.
The player of the year another year, like 18, I think it was, or 19. But yeah, that player of the year Kante, just different style of gravy. Kante's always been a different style of gravy when it comes to FIFA and defensive midfielders. Normally, I prefer the taller players, but Kante's just that one exception that I'm like, he doesn't act like he's that height. He always acts like he's probably like a good 6 or 7 inches taller than that with his strength.
I do remember that card, and I actually did that SBC as well as, it wasn't just you, I also did him. But yeah, for me, my one is a man who loves, who never actually plays centre mid, but he gets a lot of centre mid special cards. I decided on his FIFA 18 version, and that's FUT Birthday with Sprinkles, Florenzi. Florenzi is just a card that I look forward to every year at centre mid, starting because of that. I almost can't explain it. He's just so naturally good at holding midfield for me. I can't really explain why.
Good god tier card.
I wasn't even a 4-star skiller at this point. Like, I didn't care about 4-star skills until about end of FIFA 20, beginning of FIFA 21. That's when I finally learnt skill moves. So I could use cards like Florenzi with 3-star in midfield, and I wouldn't know any difference. So that's why you're not noticing any skillers or anything crazy here from me, which is normally what you'd expect. But when I think nostalgia, I think of players like Florenzi in midfield, 100%.
What about your final midfielder?
My final midfielder, we're going back to FIFA 16, and I'm having to look up what the version of the card is, because there was 2 versions of this. There was a 91 and a 92. I had the 91. And it is an international man of the match, Kevin De Bruyne, that I pack pulled, and he carried me to winning Division 1 back in the day. I didn't win Division 1. I won it once, and that was with Kevin De Bruyne in my midfield, pinging long shots. Holy Jesus, this card was mental. Like, it was outrageous, some of the stuff this would pull off. I audibly freaked out. I already had De Bruyne in my team, just his normal gold card, towards the end of FIFA. Back when you could actually do that with a team, and it would be okay. I was using standard 86, Man City De Bruyne, and then suddenly in a pack I see this red and blue card, and then pops up Kevin De Bruyne. I'm like, firstly you have a massive freak out, and then suddenly put him in my team, sort of straight in instead of the normal De Bruyne, and the extra step I needed to get to Division 1 and win it. So it's a lot of memories from this card.
For me, the first of my cams, I don't know which one to go for here. I'm gonna say Foot Freeze Gnabry first.
Okay.
The card from last year. He was a player that I would always build my team around. It didn't matter who I did, like which SBC or whoever the new player was. I was like, the first name on the sheet was Foot Freeze Gnabry. Just a little bit of fun, you know. Great looking card to me. And unfortunately, he was also the first sort of like player that got sent to the gulag with search and discards that I brought to my streams and stuff. So yeah, a lot of fond memories, but at the same time, pain at the same time that I had to submit him.
If I recall correctly,
into an SBC.
Was he the first one? I think he was the second, because I remember the first one possibly being Mbappe.
No,
because Mbappe, you nearly boycotted your own series, didn't you?
No. In terms of like the whole like budget builder face off and like guesting on Foot Eliminator and stuff, yeah, Mbappe was for that style thing. But in terms of like proper, you gift to me, do search and discard, he was the first of that, and I think it was Lady Mers that did the damage as well, which is even more painful. It was either him or Kaka. It was one of those two that was the first, basically.
They were the victim.
They were the victim. They were the victim indeed.
So
But
for me, I'm gonna go to probably my first like actual proper traditional pick someone might think of, and I'm going for a Team of the Year nominee, and it's a card that I absolutely adored when it came out. It was the Gareth Bale. That Gareth Bale, like deep blue Team of the Year practically card was outrageous. Even when he re-released the SBC, that card still felt incredible. It was an endgame card released in January that was, I think, only like 92 rated or something. But it just destroyed teams. Because FIFA 19 was all about skills and heading and things like that. That's exactly what you want Bale on a right wing to do. He just destroyed teams for me. I absolutely adored that Gareth Bale card. It helps that he's ex-Tottenham. But it was just, I just love that card so much.
For my other cam then, it's going to be Team of the Season, Marco Reus. Back in FIFA 19 in particular. I think again, in early days of FIFA, I think I was just a boring sort of person. I always tend to stick to mainly my sort of Premier League teams. I rarely sort of wandered away from that because that was mainly stuff that I knew. FIFA 19, I feel, is probably like the first sort of main time that I started stepping away from it. So I think my whole like German love affair with FIFA started with Team of the Season Reus and that particular card. High pace, good like dribbling, good shooting, good passing. What else can I ask for a cam in a 4-2-2 than good old Marco Reus?
Yeah, I get that. You know when you just get a card come to mind when you sort of just start describing something? I just had someone else into my mind, and I'm not sure who to go for my striker. I'll say who my left wing is here, and that's my only Colombian that made it into this list, and that is James Rodriguez. His FIFA 18 Team of the Match Day card. I didn't know it was Team of the Match Day, but he had a 90. I think it was a 95 left mid card. Holy Christ! It just tore teams apart. Colombia's not known for their left wings. I think on FIFA, from what I remember. They mainly had... So, Sinestra this year is fine. That's great. I wish I had Sinestra back in the day. Because I was having to get by off of, like... I think it's Carrillo and the likes. There was, like, an MLS Colombian left mid who was 75 each year. That was what I had to use most years. This card was just... It just was so good for me. I'm running out of words. We're getting further and further in, and I'm just running out of words to describe these cards. But they just tear teams apart. These cards, that you're nostalgic for them. I'm sure if I went back and used them again, I'd love it still. But
yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. It would be nice to go back and use some of these cards. I wish in some ways that you could bring them into newer generations to see what they're like on newer gameplay in some ways.
The thing is, they wouldn't be the same because almost the way that EA designed the games, the power curve from these cards from back in the day. I looked at one of the ones who didn't make my list that's an honourable mention. I look at I sent this one to you in the group chat as well, as an 83 rated FIFA 12 card. And it just demolishes teams. And it's not even someone like Nilmar. It's someone who's alongside of us, Wellerton. Wellerton was just insanity back in those days. Strong link to Emenike. I think even McGeady, if you love the McGeady spin, etc., you could use him. Like, cards that come back at you throughout the years. I never got to use it, but when you see a card like the second informed Kevin Morales, I came up against that and got destroyed. That's what cards like that do. They just... Back in the day with informs, they'd do stupid things. Morales had 2 informs. He didn't get an increase in any other stat apart from shooting, I'm pretty certain, in which it went up to like 92 for a Kevin Morales 82 card.
It's nuts.
The fact that everything's so well-rounded and so high these years, cards like that, you'd think, well, they wouldn't do as well.
Yeah. Definitely.
Who
I
have you got
mean,
for your
for my
striker?
first of my strikers, I'm gonna start off with the end of an era card that I've got written down. Back in FIFA 17, it is end of an era Totti.
Yeah, I get that. It crossed my mind.
You know, you got to respect what that man done, and you know he deserved a high end card like that. So it was just fun to play with, something a little bit different. Didn't necessarily put in my starting team, but card that you can put in, and it had a nice dynamic image as well. Him holding up a framed number 10 Totti shirt.
If I remember that year, so many good end of an era cards. That was the year that there was Philip Lahm with the flowers round him, and there would have been Lampard, Gerrard in there, but they're not the ones I'm thinking of. There's a couple of others, and I'm annoyed. I had them in my head. I said Lahm first. That was the year for flashbacks, and well, not flashbacks, but end of an eras, as you say.
End of an era. Yeah.
They just came at you one after the other, after the other, after the other, and they were all so good.
But moving on to my other striker, is the most expensive player that I have ever packed. But it's not I technically packed them either. So it was back in the day where good old Mr. Chufters was streaming. It was during Team of the Year in FIFA 21. I gave him my baby or mid icon pack. I'm pretty sure it's baby or mid. He opened it up. Portuguese centre forward outsteps Baby Eusebio, who at the time I'm pretty sure was like 5 million in coins. At that point, I'd never packed anybody remotely close to that value on FIFA. Like, if I packed anybody, might have been lucky to pack somebody just over a mil or something like that. I know I did get, who was it? It would be Lucas Moura and his FUT birthday card, I think it was,
so.
last FIFA. That was about a mil.
One,
yeah. That came afterwards though, but that was like the closest to getting into that sort of 7-figure sum. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be easy to get to that now with the way the market is nowadays and how it's probably going to be in the future. But that one in particular just stands out, and using him for pretty much until maybe mid team of season, and had to change him out because at that point he's then getting behind the power curve. But being able to have a card of that caliber for so long, it was just wonderful.
You mentioning an icon has changed my striker pick. My striker pick was going to be team of the season moments Danny Ings from FIFA 20.
Okay.
But then you said an icon moments, or not an icon moment, but an icon moments is my answer. It's the answer I think everyone expects me to say that's not Andre Silva. It just has to be Puskas. Moments Puskas last year was just... I've not tried this year's one still. I've still not tried it. I'm completing
With
the
the
SBC
upgrade
as
as well.
Yeah, exactly. He's got the upgrade and 5-star skills and 4-star. I can't wait to try that card. But right now it's the FIFA 21 version. That card was a monster. I could have shot from most places and it would go in. I'm so glad you said an icon. Otherwise, I would have hated myself for not. If I remembered I hadn't said Puskas here, I would be fuming.
Yeah. Oh dear!
But
I should have gone second there.
You should have gone second. Danny Ings was a great card. I'm not gonna slate this Danny Ings card. It's the one that finally taught me skill moves. That's not something you say. The card that I learned to do 4-star skill moves like the Berber spin was with Team of the Season moments Danny Ings. And yeah, I don't get it either. But there's so many good strikers I remember down the years. The one that I said, when you forget a card, Clint Dempsey Team of the Season FIFA 16 was a monster for me. That was the impact sub of dreams for that Div 1 winning side. Him with De Bruyne, with everything, was such a great team for me back in the day. Danny Ings FIFA 20, but then Puskas. I'm sure that this Puskas FIFA 22 with 5-star skills will probably top it, but the 21 version was just so good. So good for me.
Yeah.
And if we're mentioning most expensive pack pools, Vieira is my most expensive pack pool, but he does not get in to this team. He probably does in terms of the best players, but for nostalgic for me, he's not in that nostalgic tier. I'm grateful for the money he got me. That 6 mil was like gone in like a month, but yeah, I do have a special place for that Puskas. That was where a lot of that money went. That was like 3 mil, and I tried him. I'm pretty certain.
Now, we haven't listed any players from this FIFA because I think in some ways, with the amount of promos that EA regurgitate out on like pretty much a 2-weekly basis, like there's not really been a gap. It could have been easy to pick some players from this year. So instead, we're going to have a few honourable mentions, aka like maybe 3 super subs. So I'm just going to ring out my 3 players. So I'm going to start off with Future Stars Saliba. Absolutely love that card, especially being an Arsenal fan. But he was obviously out at Marseille. Then my prime icon moments, Thierry Henry, God rest his soul. He's in heaven, but absolutely loved that card whilst I got to own it. And the other one is Luis Diaz, who I've had his inform, his headliners, and now his footies. He's kind of like my Andre Silva, basically. So he's the guy that I've basically kind of used throughout FIFA. But I've been a bit more lucky because he's actually managed to have proper upgrades throughout the calendar, whereas unfortunately in your Andre Silva, you've been stuck to 87 being the best.
Listen, that's not stopped him tearing teams apart, including you, by the way. No. Let's not pretend this Andre Silva's not ripped you new ones. On more than one occasion.
Yeah.
But Andre Silva, if we're talking FIFA 22, I'm just going to chuck him in there. That's where he needs to be mentioned, at least in some shape or form. If we're talking impact subs, though, and we're going attacking in those impact subs, then my mind goes to Team of the Season Ben Yedder. I love that card a lot, as well as Paulo Dybala's Team of the Season I had as a red pick, so very fortunate in that regard. As for defenders this year, I'm actually having a look through to see if I can find like A1, and I might join you on your Sergio Ramos crusade, honestly, because that's used a lot of times by me. Yeah, I think I'll go with that. I'll go with FUT Birthday Sergio Ramos as my defender of choice.
Yeah,
160 games for me.
Good.
I don't play anywhere near as much as I should.
But we are now going to let Brad come in with his pre-recorded answers for his choice of 11. Be interesting to hear back and see what he says. But here you are, Brad.
Hello guys, so first of all, apologies for not being there on the podcast live. Fortunately, I was away for the weekend in Yorkshire, but we did have a bit of a longer journey back than we thought, so I was quite tired and unable to record the podcast by the time we got back home. But I put this question to the guys because over the years, I've only really played FIFA Ultimate Team since kind of FIFA 17 onwards. So there's going to be quite a few mentions during that period for me. Also a few cards that I've come up against that didn't actually own as honourable mentions as well. So I'm going to start in goal. And this guy wasn't actually mentioned. I was waiting for him to be mentioned. They mentioned Butland. I'm actually going to go with the FIFA 18 Footies Begovic. So a little bit similar. He was the OP goalkeeper at the time, and his footies card was insane. I do remember having that, and that was kind of like my first experience of the kind of OP player that was lower rated, and he's the one that I remember most. Then sort of shooting back to FIFA 17 off him, in the exact same vein, and I believe Luke mentioned this one as well, was Luke Smalling's footies card as well. So again, another OP defender. Really liked using him, just seemed to be like the unstoppable force that Van Dijk has become over the years in the game. My other centre-back actually shouts back to FIFA 19 Team of the Season, Izzo. Now, the reason I've gone for this guy is because that year, I do remember that he kept getting inform after inform after inform after inform. And his first one that I believe was like 81 rated, actually was a really decent inform to use in game, and they just kept improving on that. And the Team of the Season card I felt like was just absolutely insane. I think he had something like 86 pace or 85 pace or something. So at that time, it was quite a high pace for a centre back, and I really enjoyed using that card. My right back is in FIFA 18, and that is actually the Festival of FUT Valencia. Over the years, around that time, I'd used Valencia quite a lot, but this special card upgrade right at the end of FIFA was insane. He had like 94 pace, 90 dribbling, 89 defense, 92 physical. Don't worry, I don't know that off by heart. I'm reading it on the card. And yeah, he was just insane as a right back. He just seemed to be brilliant in game. I really enjoyed that card. My left back is going to probably come as a surprise to a lot of people because they may not remember this card much, or certainly would have gotten rid of this card before he reached his full potential, and it is the UEL Marcus Alonso SBC. Now, I believe this is really cheap, and I think at the time of doing the SBC was either 84 rated, I think, but he was a live card, so he was going to get updated based on Chelsea's progress, and they actually did so well that he ended up with a 91 rated card. Now, although he was one of the slower paced sort of right backs or left backs in the game, he actually was solid in defence, and his man marking and everything like that was absolutely ridiculous in game. So yeah, Alonso was my man. Marcus Alonso's card there. I've gone with a 4-2-4 in this formation, and I've gone for two midfielders, and one of them is actually technically a centre forward. But Luke will know that I had a really sort of love for this card, and that was FIFA 21, the Moments Dybala SBC. I just, like, that was the first time for me where, like, I really felt the responsiveness of a player that was short, that dribbled on the spot, that had that high agility, and he was the first experience of that where I just felt like I could turn on a circle and do anything with that card. And I really enjoyed it, and probably was my first time of actually using any sort of skill moves as well. And in the same vein, on FIFA 21, right at the end of the game, I mean, we all probably got him by the end, but in game, this card was insane to use. It was the Path to Glory Acuna, 98 rated. Stats were actually ridiculous. I think he had 90 maybe in all stats. Was just insane. I remember getting that card towards the end in the 85 times 10s, and once I got him in the squad and was just using him, he just seemed to be insane, as you would expect with a card that was that high rated. Now, my wingers in the 4-2-4, I'll go with the kind of more obvious and definitely the most expensive one out of them, and it is actually the Summer Heat Vinicius Jr. That card was, again, like what I say about Dybala, it was just the card that seemed to just flow. Anytime you moved your stick, you just seemed to move perfectly the exact way you wanted him to go. And again, there seemed to be no delay. Responsiveness was amazing. Agility was amazing. It's from FIFA 20 Summer Heat Promo. You remember it, that splash of like paint with a kind of white background. And yeah, that card was absolutely ridiculous. I didn't actually own the card, but I got to use it. It used to pop up quite a lot in drafts, which at that time I think used to get maybe SBC cards and things in drafts as well. So drafts at towards the end, you did them quite a lot, and I just remember it being insane. My right wing. Now, a little bit of this is going to be because it was like my first chance to get to own this card, but also it's because it was the first time this sort of card had been seen, was actually the FIFA 21 Flashback CR7. I really enjoyed this card, and a lot of people slated it. They didn't feel that it was with the curve. They felt like it was quite behind the curve and that he didn't actually shoot very well. But for some reason, that didn't seem to fit with me. He seemed, for me, in game so good, and I think I played him at striker actually as well. And I really loved that card, and I loved the concept that we could own this top sort of 3 players in FIFA as a lower version for a affordable SBC at the time. So I really enjoyed that card. And funnily enough, tonight, as I'm recording this and editing this podcast, I've just packed the 99 Ronaldo in FIFA 22. So I'm looking forward to try and use that card as well. My final 2 strikers are going to be one from FIFA 20, one from current FIFA, which doesn't come as a surprise, so I'll do that one first. I have mentioned it in the podcast over the course of the year, and that is the Squad Foundations SBC Appender. This guy is what I would say the supreme super sub for me. Now, pretty much, I would start the game with my 2 strikers and sort of get him on. I think at the time I had Hero Robbie Keane, who at the start seemed to be okay, and then I don't know whether there was an update or I don't know whether the curve just changed. He seemed to not be able to do the business anymore, and this guy's SBC was the perfect super sub. He was absolutely ridiculous, and was in my team for a long time until we started to obviously move ahead with sort of the new promos, and obviously EA have thrown a lot of promos in FIFA 22 our way. My next one, and now this is going to be one that I don't know whether you guys will remember, but back in the day, League SBCs used to give you a choice of players, and my player from this was Matthias Cunha. I really loved this card, and honestly, when I got this card from the SBC and used him, I couldn't believe how good he was for completing the SBC. I used to always make sure that come sort of way before the League SBCs were out, I used to make sure I had every team in my club, so that I could complete the SBCs, and then I'd usually have duplicates and stuff saved to try and make some coins on the transfer market, so I could not only complete the SBC but try and make a little bit of coins back from buying the players for the teams early. And yeah, this Matthias Cunha card was absolutely insane. And then he got a winter refresh as well at a different club, which I also really liked in game as well. My mentions, as we would say them, are going to be 2 players that I never did, but I came up against so many times, and every time you saw it, you just knew that you were in for a tough game. And it is the Showdown Kleiber and Flashback Robin from FIFA 21. Those 2, you guys will remember. As soon as you just like loaded up the screen, saw the team, and saw them 2, you were just like, okay, this is where I'm going to be tough. That Flashback Robin seemed to be way better than the stats on his card, and Kleiber, Showdown Kleiber got the upgrade and was 86 rated as well. And yeah, was just an insane card to come up against. So honourable mentions for me are those 2 in terms of coming up against them. I didn't have them or own them, but yeah, definitely cards to contend with.
Okay, thank you very much, Brad, for coming in and answering your own question.
Mm-hmm.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
But we are now going to.
There, honestly, you know, can't agree with all of them.
There's a few like iffy selections, but the rest, yeah, not too bad. I mean, you're just copying us basically.
Exactly. You know, there's so many players I left out, like that I want to talk. Like I mentioned Wellington briefly. Jackson Martinez FIFA 15, whether it's team of the season or normal version, was just monster. There's a reason I was unbeaten for 2 years in online friendlies with Colombia. It was just so good. And my favourite my most expensive team of the season pack bought at the time, Tots Aguero FIFA 17. But we'll leave it there.
We are now moving over to the viewer-based questions or listener-based questions. First question is going to be coming from Venom, and he is asking, one player that hasn't played much for England you would take to the World Cup if you were Gareth Southgate. Now, my answer, I want to take not just into the squad, I want to actually potentially see my choice in the starting 11 potentially as well.
Right, I've got to think about
So-
it. So, because I've not seen these, so
All
I'll
right.
have a bit of a look. So I'll let you take the reins and see where you're going with this.
Okay, so my choice of player who hasn't played much, but he has played in the under 19 and under 20 system, is Rico Henry of Brentford. I think when you think about like the left back sort of situation, and even look back to Euros, Gareth Southgate was playing right backs at some points at left back. Like he obviously had a few injury situations, but the pool of players at the same time, you could say, is not as good as like the right hand side. Chilwell is seeming like he's having some injury issues. Plus, also, he doesn't look like he's a set-on starter now at Chelsea as well, with Cucurella starting and being brought by Chelsea. And I think Rico Henry is a sort of perfect fit. Like he's now got Premier League experience, so he's playing at the top level in England. Brentford didn't do too badly last season. You know, got quite a few clean sheets under his belt, so definitely can get the defensive work done and dusted quite nicely. He's chipped in with a few assists, a goal, so he can basically probably do a little bit in terms of the attacking output side of things. But I think if Chilwell isn't looking like maybe an option as a dead cert starter, and with maybe other English option that you could say is a shout is Tyreek Mitchell, I think Rico Henry could be a good shoe-in for a starting position in that England squad, even though I'm not really an England fan, Venom. So thank you for this question. But yeah, Luke, what are you saying?
Potentially disagreeing with you.
What?
So, you mentioned all those valid points, and that brings me to a different man. You mentioned under 19s, you mentioned left backs being needed. This man plays in a 3-back system at left back. I'm going to seem incredibly biased when I say this, but Ryan Sessegnon. What is that? No, what is that noise? You're saying Rico Henry. What the...
Rico Henry's better than Ryan Sessegnon, and that's all I'm just going to say on that fact, all right? Yes, okay. I will say it probably is more suited for a 3-back system, but this is weird, again, because, again, I'm a Spain fan, not an England fan, but I don't think England should be playing a 3-at-the-back system. They should be playing a 4-back, in my opinion, and utilising the good amount of midfield and attacking options that, frankly, they have, and potentially maybe even using one of the right backs in maybe a bit more advanced position, potentially, and let's just say not using Harry Maguire would be a good start as well.
Yeah, that would rid you of the 3-back problem in the first place. But
yes,
no,
exactly.
Sessegnon's better than Henry. No, I'm sorry. Sessegnon is under
Deluded.
What? Sorry, what was that?
Deluded.
Okay, sorry. When he's getting started regularly now,
Yeah.
he's being played alongside Perisic in rotation, who is going to be passing important knowledge in terms of crossing, but he's already been overlapping. He's already scored this season. He's been getting better and better and developing as the season's gone on. In terms of last season, started a bit shaky, but now he's getting regular game time. He's forced Reguilon out the squad. He might even be going to Nottingham Forest, from what I've heard at this point. Which is, I mean, everyone's going to Nottingham Forest, but Sessegnon, he can cross. He can get forward. He's naturally playing in the system that Southgate wants to play in. It makes sense to slot him in. Chilwell is now being pushed out by Cucurella, so won't be getting regular game time. Luke Shaw's being pushed out because he's now been found out that he's Luke Shaw in the year of 2022.
Yeah.
You take Ryan Sessegnon. If you're playing regularly for a top side and you're also under a top manager in the same system as what the team's going to be playing, it just makes logical sense.
Yeah, like you say, Sessegnon is still developing, whereas in
Rico Henry's a finished product. Is that what you're about to? Sorry, I want to make sure you're about to say that Rico Henry's a finished product.
Rico Henry's a finished article. He's a finished product. He's not needing to develop anymore. Like, he's not developing anymore at Brentford. He's the set on starter.
Hang on, let me just check. How old is Rico Henry?
25.
He's 25. He's that old.
He's that old.
25. I don't know why I thought he was young.
I thought he was a bit younger as well, but nah. He's 25, so he's a bit more...
25 and playing for Brentford. Are you sure you want to be saying...
25 and playing for Brentford.
Are you sure you want to be saying this as your England starting fullback? I'm saying Sessegnon just to go. You said this to start.
This is to start, yeah. This is Rico Henry to start. This is he plays for the same club that beat Man United 4-0. Just like to say that.
Dear. Okay.
Same club that also caused Arsenal problems last season.
In the squad. Just checking.
That,
just double checking.
You're saying Sessegnon to go in the squad.
And
okay. There you go. See, so my Rico Henry is starting. My Rico Henry is starting ahead of your Sessegnon. There you go. See, you can take your Sessegnon can go in the squad, but he's not starting. Rico Henry starting. There we go. Problem solved.
I mean, it's not problem solved. I still strongly disagree, but
better player.
Right, what's the next question? What?
Next question.
Like, what is happening?
Next question could potentially cause a few issues, shall we say?
Right.
So coming from GH, he's asking first and foremost, most underrated player, Premier League player. This is not outside of the Prem. So most underrated Premier League player of all time.
All time.
Who should start with this, me or you?
Oh, all time. I thought it was current. Okay, that's on me. I have James Ward-Prowse down for this in terms of. I didn't realise it was all time. I will say that now. But James Ward-Prowse is incredibly underappreciated.
I mean, it is all time.
Okay.
I mean, my player is current player, but
this is current player.
Yeah, mine's a current player. I don't. Shall I go first on this?
I'm tempted. I want to stick with James Ward-Prowse, but I don't think he's the most underrated of all time. So I'm gonna have to.
Okay, I'll let you start. You said James Ward-Prowse. That's it.
Okay, so we're sticking with James Ward-Prowse in this. Okay.
You got to stick with it. I'm afraid that.
I think the thing that people think of when they think of James Ward-Prowse is purely the free kicks, but there's actually more to his game than that.
Corners.
Corners. Yes, there's corners as well. Okay, more than set pieces then, wise guy. The man is a competent box-to-box midfielder who I reckon could be enough to get into the England squad. That's another one that is actually considerable for the last questions, James Ward-Prowse, if you want to be less hot-takey. But I think he's just generally really underappreciated. The fact that he's a lifer for Southampton, people just think that he's just a gimmick almost, when he's actually a very good Premier League midfielder. So he might not be the most underrated of all time, but he is definitely underrated by most people's standards. He puts up good defensive numbers, he helps getting forward, progressing in terms of passing lanes, and he's a natural leader as well, hence he's the captain. So those are some of the reasons I think James Ward-Prowse is underrated. Maybe not the most underrated, but definitely underrated.
Okay. Mine is an actual current Arsenal player, to be fair. I think he's highly underrated, this guy. Like, if you look at underlying stats and then you actually multiply them by a full season, like, these stats will be surprising. Eddie Nketiah. Absolute underrated. And do you know what, Chelsea? You need a striker. I mean, we've got Gabby Jesus now, so he's not really going to get game time. He is a 20-goal-a-season striker, Eddie Nketiah. Honestly, you look at it last season, he played realistically 7 games where he got to play like nearly 90 minutes or 90 minutes on the spot. And in those 7 games, he scored 4 goals. So if you times 7 by 5, which is 35, which is pretty much nearly a full season. So 4 times 5 is 20 goals. So there you go. You got a 20 goal striker right there. So Eddie Nketiah is very, very underrated. And I think he could play for a top team. Like, easily. Like, unfortunately, he's not probably going to get the game time now that we got Gabby Jesus. And he didn't really get the opportunity at Arsenal. But I think if he's given the opportunity, he's going to score a team 20 goals a season.
Sorry, I just want to make sure here. I'm delusional for saying Ryan Sessegnon makes the 23-man squad. And you're out here saying, and you had time to think of this, of all time, the most underrated Premier League player is Nketiah.
Yes, Nketiah, number 14 shirt now. You know, wearing the goated number shirt. So, says it all, really.
I don't even know where to begin.
Wow.
I'm
you
actually
should be playing for a
speechless.
top team.
I'm actually speechless.
You should be starting. You should be starting week in, week out. You score 20 goals a season. You know, think about when Tammy Abraham, right, wasn't really playing for Chelsea and then got given the opportunity. He scored goals, right? Yeah. And then he got shipped off to Roma. And for some strange reason, Frank Lampard stopped playing Tammy Abraham. And it cost him his job in some ways, stupid idiot. Right? Nketiah is that sort of level. If you put him in the right team like Tammy Abraham, he will score goals. He'll be better than Harry Kane.
No, sorry, hang on. No. Let's not... There's so much wrong with this. I don't know where to begin. Before you even mention Kane's, they don't even deserve naming in the same breath. Kane and Nketiah are not even... Nketiah is probably championship level, but bar that 1 week, like 2 weeks last season, what was his championship record
Chelsea,
like? Was he at least good in the championship? Like, what?
Wasn't given much of an opportunity because he got called back from Leeds. So he didn't same situation I'm talking about. Never given the proper opportunity to play. Right, this guy who is 23. Right, let's say if he was given a proper opportunity for like the past, say 3 years or 4 years. Let's say from 19. Okay, this guy would be on probably close to 100 goals in the Premier League if he was given the proper opportunity.
You don't even mention Nketiah in the same level as Richarlison. Like...
Richarlison's on a lower level, yeah.
No.
Definitely.
Richarlison's more Premier League proven than Nketiah. You don't get to compare him to Kane. You get to compare him to maybe a Danny Ings on a poor season, or who's like a Gabby Bonlahor is probably a good like compare. Compare him to Gabby Bonlahor, and you're probably on the right wavelength. But like, you're comparing someone who's in, I think, the top 10 goal scorers in Premier League history to a man who scored for club only 13 goals.
Yeah, like I say, Kane was given the opportunity. This poor man, Eddie Nketiah,
he's played 79 games. Given the opportunity. He's got 13 goals.
Yeah, but most of those games, right, if you look at it, he plays like maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. Majority of those. Like I said, last season, if you look at it, he played a lot of games. But just seven of those games were actually 70 minutes or more that he got to physically play. The rest of it was like bare bones in terms of minutes. Like there's a lot of like single digits. I think in terms of substitutions, I think the highest is like maybe 13 minutes they got given. Like you can't do much in that sort of opportunity. But if you get, like I say, those 7 games that he was given the opportunity, he scored 4 goals and 2 against Chelsea as well. 2 against Chelsea. So bish bash bosh, this guy, if he's given the opportunity, 20 goal a season, striker, should be playing for a top team. Unfortunately, Arsenal never given him the opportunity, and now that we got Gabby Jesus, who clearly is doing very well, is just not going to shoo him out of the team. So probably best to offload him to another club, but probably abroad, because I wouldn't want to give him to another Premier League team for him to score like 2 goals or score a hat-trick against us, because that's how good of a player he is. So yeah, I'd probably rather sell him to like an Italian club or Bundesliga club or something like that. So the only chance might be able to score goals against us is in European competition. So yeah, probably leave it at that. But he's very underrated. But I think enough being said with that. I think we got to move on to the next one, right? Overrated.
I've seen this one. I've thought about this one. I can't get over what you just said. I mean, mine's I thought my overrated one was controversial. You come out and, like, how? Like, I thought you'd say, like, if you're going to go Arsenal, I thought you'd say someone like Rosicky or, like, Wilshere or something. Like, going, like, oh, they get a bad rap because they're injured all the time. Like...
Oh, no.
Or Diaby or someone.
Is,
like,
it's not under...
Nketiah.
Diaby's never really played.
And,
oh, God.
I can't believe
let's move on to overrated, right? Since you went first right with the underrated, I'm going overrated. I'll start first with the overrated, right? And I'm saying Steven Gerrard. Clearly didn't want to win a Premier League trophy. He must have clearly deliberately slipped up or something like that. Like, come on. Like, if you want to be considered like greatest of all time or something, or be considered like one of the best of within the league for your position, I mean, a domestic Premier League trophy. I mean, trophies, yeah, good, but Premier League trophy, mwah. You know, you got to have one of those on your CV, and Steven Gerrard never really got that. So, Steven Gerrard, you're overrated. Not as good as Frank Lampard.
Are you okay? Has something happened to you this week? Are you, like, have you like fallen down the stairs or something, or like had an accident at work that's not your fault?
Oh, wait. Do I need to call one of those numbers to get like compensation or something like that?
You might do, mate, because I can't believe what I'm hearing. Honestly, I honestly can't believe what I'm hearing. I don't know which is a worse take. I don't know if Nketiah even being mentioned in the same breath as Kane, or Gerrard. So you're saying because he doesn't have a Premier League title, Gerrard's overrated?
Yeah, he's so overrated. Lampard, better midfielder. Patrick Vieira, better midfielder. Kevin De Bruyne, better midfielder. Wijnaldum, better midfielder. Right. What?
Oh, you're gonna kill me. Okay, I thought mine was bad. I mean, I'm just gonna annoy a certain fan base, but okay, I'm just gonna get mine out before I just lose it. I'm saying Didier Drogba, and I'm expecting no outrage from you after what you've said so far. I'm expecting nothing from you. Chelsea fans, sure, they can have a go at me for this, but for me, for what I think, Drogba in terms of the Premier League, this is Premier League player, not cup finals, nothing like that. In terms of a Premier League striker, Didier Drogba is overrated. I think he only ever got over 20 goals twice, yet Chelsea fans hail him as the second coming of Christ almost. I get that for the cup finals, but when you start comparing him to other Premier League strikers, it's not quite as the same. I think he's overrated in that respect. He's a good striker. On his day, he's an incredible striker. But does he get mentioned in the same breath as some other players on the pitch in terms of big games? In terms of big games, I'd say he's better than Kane. Yeah. But in terms of every game of the season, you want a striker, you're not going to say, oh, I'll take Drogba. For a one-off final, you take Drogba. Fair enough. I respect that opinion. But you just don't take him over a season. I'd rather
That's
Diego.
why you need Nketiah.
He's not even the best Chelsea striker I'd take over a season. I'll take Diego Costa over him for a season, for the whole season.
Okay.
Personally, Drogba for me overrated in terms of Premier League, but in terms of big games, is correctly rated and is lauded for a reason. I just still can't believe this Gerrard talk. I still can't believe this Nketiah talk.
Well,
honestly, I'd pay to see Brad's
Nketiah
face.
is very underrated.
I would pay to see
that
Brad's
was
face
the question.
Right
Underrated. Nketiah fits that because he's not rated.
Yes, there's a reason he's not rated, because he's not good. There's a reason he's not given chances, because he's not that good. It's not difficult.
Scored 2 goals against Chelsea. Must be good. I think before you have a mental breakdown, I think we might have to leave it there. But anyone who's listening to this and you want to give out any opinions, you can join our Discord or comment over on our Twitter page, and tell us what you think about my opinion of Nketiah being underrated. You're probably agreeing with me anyway, but if you somehow unrealistically disagreeing with me, you're fools. But nah. Joking aside, if you want to comment and let us know what you think about these opinions, please feel free to comment on our Twitter or join our Discord and let us know, and be able to submit more questions for us to potentially give out some hot takes, or even you want to give us a hot take that we can react to. Please feel free to join our Discord. Link is down below. Brad, I hope you've enjoyed editing this. Everyone, I hope you've enjoyed listening to this. Luke, I hope you've enjoyed being part of this extra time Q&A and hot takes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. Just remember, I'm delusional for saying a Spurs player makes a 23-man squad and Nketiah is the most underrated player of all time, supposedly. In terms of Premier League.
Yes.
Sorry, apologies. In terms of Premier League.
Yeah, yes. No debating that. But we will see you all next week. Goodbye.
Bye.